Hi everybody. Sorry, we just have a few technical glitches, just sorting ourselves out. So welcome back. Day 3 of the sheROAR's challenge. I can't believe it's already day 3. It's gone so quick. But really what I want to do is just welcome you all and again celebrate you for being here and investing in you. And taking the time to really ask yourself some pretty tough questions. I have had feedback over the last couple of days. People are loving the questions, but of course they're uncomfortable questions, and that's the whole point. The whole point of this challenge is to help you really become unsinkable, unstoppable, and unconfined. And so this is really the structure of the 3 days. The first day we've done sheROAR's, which is all based on the ROAR blueprint. So my ROAR blueprint, which is a resilience framework, a personal resilience framework to help you become unsinkable. So how do you develop your resilience muscle every day so that you can weather life's daily storms? So the ROAR blueprint, if you remember, consists out of 4 components. So it's all about, it starts with clarity on your authentic purpose. So it's about igniting your authentic purpose. Then it's about winning your inner game, so your thoughts and your feelings, and developing that winning mindset, psychology mastery. The third element is all about winning your outer game, so your words and your actions. So this is kind of physiology mastery, and with that I always say how you show up, how you generate energy for life. And I'm so passionate about the inner game and the outer game, because it's all about personal power. It's about you stepping into your power, you standing in your power. And then ultimately the fourth component is all about the courage to speak your truth. So ROAR, at the heart of the framework, is also a 4-step process that helps you have courageous conversations. And yesterday we continued by looking at how do you become unstoppable. So it's the second day is all about she's more, you want more, and that was all about you looking into the future, 3 years into the future. You've had the best year of your life, looking back, and what's happened in all the areas of your life. So what's happened around your vocation, your purpose, what's happened around your relationships and your well-being, and what's happened around your health and your well-being, and also what's happened around your time and your money freedom. So what do all those areas in your life look like 3 years from now, when you have had the best year of your life? And then we've tapped into your why are these things important to you? Why is that dream life important to you? Okay, so that was kind of the summary of day 1 and day 2. Today, as I said, is all about becoming unconfined. And the image I want you to have in your head is of an eagle soaring. So today is all about she soars. And this is all about how you show up as your best self. Okay, and we're going to spend quite a bit of time today practicing the ROAR process. Okay, so hopefully by now you will know that ROAR is a 4-step process for having courageous conversations. So this is courageous conversations with yourself, so your inner ROAR. And ROAR stands for recognize, observe, assert, and redirect. Okay, so for those of you, for the VIPs with the workbook, we have 2 pages for ROAR. We've got the inner ROAR, so that's on page 16. Okay, so we're going to do a little exercise on that. And then we've got the outer ROAR, which is page 17. But ultimately, today is about, as I said, you soaring and you unleashing your authentic voice and speaking your truth. Right, and this is absolutely about conversations, inner conversations, inner dialogue, your inner ROAR. So how do we change that conversation that is almost like a negative conversation, a disempowering conversation? How do we change that into an inner ROAR? How do we change that into an empowering conversation? Okay, and then of course we're also going to look at your conversation with others, so your outer ROAR. So I want you to think about conversations that you are potentially avoiding, a conversation with someone else that you are potentially avoiding. And why is that? And what would it take for you to have the conversation? Okay, so we'll step through the process and help you figure that out. Okay, so the whole point about the ROAR process, the inner ROAR process. So let's focus on the inner ROAR first. And so this is where we have to become aware of what's going on inside of us, connecting with our inner being, with our feelings, with our thoughts, with our emotions. Okay, so what's really helpful here is to think about, if you think about a circle and you sort of draw a line through the circle, whatever is above the circle, above the line, is in your awareness. That's in your conscious mind. Okay, and that's the things that you are already aware of. Okay, the things that are below the line is your subconscious, is your unconscious. Okay, and that's the stuff which is sort of the automatic things that happen, things that we're not aware of, that is sort of ruling our life. Okay, and very, very importantly, about 95% of the stuff below the line is unconscious. Okay, the piece that's above the line is only about 5%. So this is all about the conscious and the unconscious, okay? Conscious and subconscious. So what we want to do in mastering the inner roar is about bringing more of that unconscious feelings and automatic feelings, those disempowering feelings, and bring that above the line in the area of your awareness, okay? So I really want to just invite you to embrace that. So some uncomfortable feelings might come up for you, but what's important here is to recognize. So recognize is the first step, and recognize is all about you absolutely seeing what is happening right here in the moment. Okay, so the beauty of recognizing what is happening inside me right now helps you to label it, to name it. And what's fantastic, so what is that feeling that comes up? Are you scared? Are you worried? Are you anxious? Are you obsessing? Are you worrying? Are you are you overthinking? Are you planning? What's that sort of, are you feeling angry? Are you feeling guilty? Are you feeling ashamed? So it's about tapping in and recognizing what is that emotion that is coming up for you. Okay, and once we name it, and this is the beauty of the process, we can kickstart the healing process. Okay, so when I say healing, it's about how do we step out of that almost like disempowering feelings that pull us down, that, make us small, and how do we actually work through it and actually become a better version of ourselves, and become a person that's compassionate with themselves, a person that's kind with themselves. So this is really all about this ROAR process. This inner ROAR process really is a tool for personal resilience and for awakening kindness. Okay, so this awakening of kindness is important because this is kindness to yourself first and foremost, the inner ROAR, and then kindness to others. Okay, so I've asked you yesterday and the day before to think about the disempowering emotions that are coming up for you. So we've had the question when we were dreaming big. I was asking you to think about, so what are the obstacles that's coming up for you? So my one that comes up in that came up in the past for me a lot, and quite recently, was that I'm not good enough. Okay, so recognizing that feeling of unworthiness, and it's almost like we all have that, and Tara Brach calls this the trance of unworthiness. So you can think about that, the piece that's below the line, you can think about that as the trance of unworthiness. And so a trance is almost like the thing below the line. It's in our unconscious. We don't realize it. But the more we think about these things and the more we think these disempowering feelings, thoughts and feelings, we hardwire those, and they become part of who we are. Okay, so what we want to do with ROAR is to untangle that. We want to untangle those pathways in our brain that are so hardwired. And we want to start really changing those conversations into empowering conversations. Okay, so the first step is recognize what's happening inside me right now. What is that emotion that's coming up for you, and naming it. And the beauty of naming it is actually, so let's say there's a fear coming up for you. So let's say the feeling is shame or anger or worry. Let's just say one of those. I mean, it could be anyone. You can pick the one that feels most present for you right now. The moment you can actually label it and name it, you're actually disempowering it. It loses its power. Okay, and that's the beauty, because you can actually once you know, apologies, what's going on, you decrease your limbic activity and that negative effect that it has on you, and you increase your executive function. So that problem solving part of your brain that is actually there, that can actually then help you find a solution and actually find a more empowering thought. Okay, so what is very important for you to realize is that you are not your thoughts or your feelings. And this is the beauty of recognizing and observing. Observing is the second step, because once you recognize it and once you stay with it, once you allow it and you be with it, you sit with it and observe it, it really, really and unleashes that ability for you to be free. Okay, so it kickstarts the healing process and it helps you live that life of freedom. And that's what we all want, and that's what we all desire. Okay, so very importantly, so Viktor Frankl, he wrote that between the stimulus, so the thing that happens, that triggers, and your response, there is a space. And in that space is your power and your freedom. So that space could be milliseconds. But if you have that ability to recognize and observe in that moment what is happening, that is really where your power lies, because you have that moment to choose your response. And of course, that is going to give you that freedom, because now you can be in control of your response. Okay, this takes a lot of practice. This doesn't happen overnight, especially not when we've hardwired these disempowering feelings and thoughts and emotions into our brains for years and years and years and years. But the beauty is, and this is proven by neuroplasticity, is that we can change it. Okay? And this is my hope and my dream for you, and for all of us, that we find that magic inside of us, you know, that magic that makes you you. And that is what this challenge is all about, is about unleashing the magic that makes you uniquely you. Okay, and that's why I'm gifting you ROAR, because I know it works and it's a beautiful process that you can use, but you have to practice it. You have to do the work. Remember what I said a couple of days ago, or yesterday even, that all change is super hard in the beginning. It gets super messy in the middle, but it is so worth it in the end. This is something that Robert Sharma says a lot. It's like, all change is hard in the beginning, messy in the middle, but so worth it in the end. Okay, so once you've recognized and observed, then the following step is all about asserting and redirecting. So for me, in the context of my inner ROAR, that's all about, okay, so the big question I ask myself is, the big assertive question that I ask myself is this true? We know that probably 95% of the things that we worry about every day never happens. We know that, yet we still worry, we still fret, we still get anxious. And listen, I do this every day. Still, it's a conscious thing that I have to really check in with myself every day to catch myself. I mean, recently I've been tested extra much because we're about to go to South Africa for a holiday on Tuesday, and of course, with all the uncertainty with South Africa being put on the red list, us not knowing whether our PCR tests are going to be negative, whether we should take the risk of flying or not, whether we should just stay here. We've not seen our family for 3 years. So many variables, so many things out of my control, so many things that are giving me sleepless nights. But it's not going to help, right? It's not going to change anything. So it's about the ability to say, okay, well, it is what it is. Recognize what you are feeling right now in this moment. What is happening inside me right now? Oh my gosh, I'm feeling so worried because I don't know if our PCR tests are going to come back negative. I'm worried. I'm really worried. But it allows me to recognize and to witness, what is happening inside of me. And so I'm not getting hooked on it. I'm aware of it. And I know that by observing it and by allowing it, it's actually to say, this is the grounds of compassion. These are the grounds of kindness to myself, and saying, I'm feeling stuck, but I acknowledge that I'm feeling stuck, and it's okay, and I'm working through it. Okay, so very, very important question when you're asserting and you're changing that conversation is about, is this true? Okay, and to let go and to surrender, because you don't always have control. Okay, um, always remind myself, it's all about, the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. That is such an important life philosophy for me, because I have such a tendency to want to control things. And for me to remind myself every day that there's only a smaller amount of things that you can ever control. But what is it that you can control and that you cannot control? And that requires serenity, courage, and wisdom. Okay, the wisdom to distinguish, and by dropping in, by becoming aware of your feelings, your thoughts and your feelings, by recognizing and observing those thoughts and those feelings, you can then assert, you can then say, this is not true, and you can redirect. Redirect is the final step. So redirecting the conversation, so having a more empowering conversation with yourself. You know what, Marilise? If your PCR tests come back positive, there's a reason for that. You were probably meant to stay in the UK. And once that happens, if that happens, then we cross that bridge. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. It's going to be tough. It's going to be hard. And I'm probably going to have tears. But at least I have taken the control that thing has over me, that disempowering control that thing has over me, and I've taken it away, and I can look at it objectively, and I can deal with it more objectively. Okay, so I've been vulnerable with you right now. I've given you a very personal example of some of the worry that I'm experiencing right now, and how I'm actually applying ROAR right now to a situation, a very, very challenging and very personal situation to me. What I'd like you to do, and I'm going to give you 5 minutes to do that, just to jot down. So go back to your notes from yesterday and the day before, and pinpoint those emotions, the disempowering thoughts and beliefs and feelings that came up for you, and see if there's one that's particularly prominent, and recognize it, observe it, assert, and redirect. Okay, so 5 minutes. I'm going to give you 5 minutes, so I'll be quiet. I promise, and I won't bother you. So we'll be back 25, let's say 25 minutes past. Okay. So just a little reminder for anybody on Facebook who perhaps didn't get the the 4 words, I should say: recognize, observe, assert, and redirect. Okay. Right, so we are now going to move on to your outer rule. Okay, so again, this framework I developed, the process I should say I developed, has very much stemmed from my experience with a bully in the workplace a few years ago. So naturally it's designed for conversations that are difficult conversations, that requires courage. And so I want to presence that with you, because it doesn't necessarily mean that it's only for difficult conversations. It's a framework that works for an important conversation, a conversation that's perhaps not a comfortable conversation, um, but but it's really really effective for when you're in sort of more conflict type situations, and you have to confront issues. You have to demonstrate courage. Okay. um, I've always in the past been very, very prone to avoiding conflict in my life. And I've learned, that sometimes you've just got to really step out of that comfort zone and say something, and just trust your gut to say something. I remember early in my career, I really, you would sort of sit in a big room with lots of people in the room, and of course, you want to say something, but you can't quite get the courage to say that thing that you want to say, that important thing that you want to say, and then you wait 10 seconds too long, and then someone else says it, and you lose your opportunity to say it. So sometimes you just got to really dig deep and find that courage just to speak up and speak your truth. Okay, so very, very important technique. Communication is absolutely vital for building amazing relationships. And so this framework is really a helpful tool for you to have, especially when you're facing a tough conversation. And how can you become fearless? How can you become courageous? And again, practice. This is not something you'll do once and you'll probably be a little bit clunky, but you'll do it again, and you'll do it again, and you'll do it again, and it becomes second nature. But you'll have to give it time, and you'll have to practice it. Okay, so I want you to think about a difficult conversation, and let's not position it as a difficult conversation. Let's position it as a conversation that's a crucial conversation. The reason I'm saying a crucial conversation is because it's very much about you. It's a conversation that's really, really important for you to move forwards in your life. So it could be because you have a personal objective. So it could be a love relationship. It could be you and in your relationship, in your personal relationship. Or it could be a work relationship where you need to have a critical conversation in order for you to move forward in your career, for you to solve a tough problem at work. But it's a really important conversation. Okay. But this could also even be a conversation with your 12-year-old. I have often got crucial conversations with my 12-year-old, and of course, children are just amazing at thinking on their feet. So my 12-year-old really tests me on a very, very frequent basis. So any conversation, but it's an important conversation. And the reason I don't want you to think about it as a difficult conversation is because now you go into that conversation thinking, oh, this is a difficult conversation. So already your mindset is in that space. It's difficult. No, this is not a difficult conversation. This is an important conversation. This is a crucial conversation, because it's going to help me move forwards. It's going to help me achieve a very, very important objective, a very important desire, something that I really want, something that I would love. Okay, so think about a conversation that you are avoiding for some reason. So I want you to kind of visualize that individual or individuals. And I would love you to think about, what will it take to have the conversation? What will it take? for you to have the conversation? And then I would love you to think about what would be the best outcome. The best outcome for me, but also the best outcome for both of us or for the group if it's more than one individual. Okay, so I'm just going to give you a little moment to reflect on that. So by now you should have an individual in mind or a group of individuals in mind, and you should think about what will it take for you to have the conversation and what would be the ideal outcome for you, but more importantly for both of you and for the group. Okay, but it's important at this point that you think about what you want from the conversation. Okay, it's important because you have to be able to stand your ground. Okay, but there's always going to be a dance, there's always going to be potentially compromise, and so the conversation happens because we want to achieve an outcome that's mutually beneficial for all of us. Okay, but think first and foremost about the ideal outcome for you, the ideal outcome for the collective. Okay. So the first step is to recognize. So you're going into the conversation. You have opened the conversation. You have stated your objective. You've asked for the meeting. You've created the right sort of environment for the meeting. You're going into the meeting with a mindset of I'm okay, you're okay. Okay, so before you go into the conversation, and I should backtrack a moment, before you go into the conversation, you have to adopt this mindset of I'm okay, you're okay. And that's important because you have to have positive regard for yourself. You have to know your rights and have healthy boundaries, but you've also got to respect the rights of the other person. So you've got to have positive regard for the other person too, and make sure that you don't go into that meeting with pre-assumptions about the other person. You might not like them very much. They may have said something that's upset you. They may have hurt your feelings. They may have attacked your identity. So this is a conflict conversation. This is a crucial conversation. So the chances are that there will be some emotions at play is really, really high. So very importantly, you've got to try and remove yourself from those emotions and those assumptions and really go into this conversation with an I'm okay, you're okay mindset. Okay, so once you've opened let's say you've opened the conversation and the person is responding, but the person is responding with some resistance. So the first thing you have to do is to recognize what's going on. What are these dynamics that's at play, right? So recognize the other person's behavior. And in my book, for me, the context was workplace bullying. So in my original format of ROAR, the recognize was all about spotting the bully, spotting the bullying behavior. Okay. Now, this is kind of besides the point for tonight's conversation because we're not speaking about a bully potentially, but it is about being able to spot the other person's behavior and then being able to see what's happening inside for me, what emotions are coming up for me. So you're kind of doing the inner ROAR whilst you're doing the outer ROAR. Okay, so you're recognizing the other person's behavior, but you're also recognizing what's going on, because what you have to do is you have to regulate yourself. You have to stay present. You have to really listen actively, right? And it's important that you then recognize and then observe. So observe is the second. So this is all the inner game stuff. At this point, you haven't responded. You are just taking in the information that the other person is feeding you. So you've got to maintain eye contact. You've got to stay present. You've got to stay calm. You've got to breathe. You've got to really, really be present and listen actively. Okay, so try and stay calm, be present, listen actively. Okay, so once you're then ready to respond, you assert. So the first step is assert, right? And this is important because I've chosen the word assert for a reason. This is not just about you kind of making yourself small. This is about making yourself present and making yourself big and being confident and assertive in your response. Okay? And this is assertiveness is kindness as well. You know, you don't have to be defensive, you don't have to be rude. You just have to be assertive and really know your rights. Again, it comes back to that positive regard for yourself, but also positive regard for the other person. So interacting from that level of power, from that place of personal power, but also with respect. Okay. And asserting can also sound like this, you know, please help me understand. You know, how is this helping us? I'd love to hear your views on XYZ. So it's not about you responding with answers necessarily. You sometimes need to respond with questions and asking, probing more, because you need more information in order to have a productive response. Okay, so asserting is also very much you inviting that feedback and doing that dance. Okay, so we do this dance, we go backwards and forwards, you respond, the person respond, you respond, and then when you get to a point where you are ready to close the conversation and move on, that is then the final step, redirect. So you redirect that conversation. So hopefully by that point, you will have come to a mutual understanding. So this is all about win-win outcomes. This is all about mutually beneficial outcomes. So creating outcomes that are mutually beneficial for all parties. And you're not always going to be able to achieve that, but redirecting the conversation could also be finishing that conversation at a point where you're like, okay, we're not going to resolve this necessarily today. Let's come back to this tomorrow. Let's sleep on it and let's come back to it tomorrow. But you're redirecting it to a place that is a good place. It's a kind place. It's a compassionate place. And everybody kind of feels good about the interaction. Okay, that's the whole point of amazing relationships, is that you've mastered the art of communication, of influence, of persuasion, and it's all about people feeling good about the interaction. There's that beautiful quote of Maya Angelou that said that people don't remember what you say or what you do, they remember how you make them feel. It's so important, right? So recognize, observe, assert, redirect. So I want you, and I want to challenge you to go away and have that crucial conversation. Doesn't have to be tomorrow, but when you're ready, sooner rather than later, I want you to go away and have that crucial conversation. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that. It's my life's work and I'm so passionate about ROAR, and it keeps evolving. I keep finding new things and new formats and new models that I keep you know, adding and layering, so it keeps evolving for me, and I just love sharing with you, and I hope you find something valuable today to take away. I'm briefly going to finish on just a little recap of the 4 buckets or the 4 areas of the RAW blueprint and the 4 big areas of your life. And I really would love you to write down 1 or 2 tangible commitments that you are going to make for yourself. Okay, so this is not just about, you know, you writing it down and putting it away. This is about something tangible that you can actually do either tonight or tomorrow to move the needle forwards in terms of you living your best life. Okay, so the 4 buckets, to remind you, the people who don't have the workbook. First one was authentic purpose, so your vocation, you know, your career, your calling, and we reflected a lot on you know, where you are, where you want to be, but what is one tangible action that you can take to move the needle forwards. Okay, the second area was your inner game and your outer game. So this is your health and your well-being. So what is one thing, 1 or 2 things, tangible things that you can do to move the needle forwards towards your best life. Third area was ROAR, so communication. It's your love and your relationships. And again, you know, what is the one or two things that you can do to move towards your best life? And then the final area, the fourth area, is your time and your money freedom. Okay, so what does that look like in 3 years' time? Remember, we dreamed big, and it's going to happen. It must happen. Destiny is done. But what is one thing you can do? Because it's not going to happen by itself. What is one or two things you can do to move the needle towards your best life? And this really is about only knowing that next step. If you can go away tonight with 2 tangible actions across these 4 areas, 2 things to move the needle, and you consistently go and you move the needle every day, little by little, you will achieve amazing things. And you'll look back in a year, you'll look back in 2 years, and you'll be absolutely astonished, you know, with what you've achieved. It really is. I mean, someone used this the other day as an analogy, and I was like thinking, this is so true. We don't even notice how the hairs on our head grow. We just notice 6 weeks or 8 weeks later that, oh, the grey, the wisdom is coming out and I need a haircut. We don't notice the hair growing. It's the same thing when you take little steps and actions every day. You don't notice it necessarily every day, but if you're consistent and you show up every day, and most importantly, show up for yourself, you will move forwards. And the cumulative effect over months and years is just going to be absolutely remarkable. Okay, so I really loved spending this time with you. I really hope you enjoyed the challenge. Please get in touch with me. Give me feedback. I'd always love to have a chat with you. You know where to find me. I'm on all the social media channels. But also drop me an email or just a personal message, and we can schedule a chat if you want to talk more. Thank you, everybody, and have an amazing rest of the day, amazing evenings. Love you lots. Bye for now.